Good evening, everyone. My name is Deborah Flora, and I am so honored to welcome you here. Thank you so much for making it out here. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Let's just start off by why we're here. We're here, number one, because we love our kids. I'm a mom, first and foremost, and that is my favorite title and my greatest privilege and honor. And my wonderful husband is right there, and together we are honored to be parents. That's why we're here tonight. We're here because of family. The very building block of Western civilization is under attack right here in the state that I grew up in Colorado. We're on the front line. I see so many of you here that I was in the Capitol building with last night until very late, testifying against HB 251312. And it's because of so many of you that spent so many hours there that last night some parts of the bill were removed. But we're here because I think of a phrase I saw in our nation's capital on one of our memorials, and it says, "The price of freedom is eternal vigilance." We have to stay vigilant. We have to stay vigilant that those parts of that bill do not get reintroduced. We have to stay vigilant because redefining misgendering as coercive control or child abuse is not according to the founding principles of our nation. Allowing the state to remove children from the loving care of their parents, that is also against what is the building block of our country. Parental guidance and love is not abuse. However, 1312 is an abuse. It's an abuse of government power into the very structure of the family. If our founding fathers had ever thought that we would arrive in this day, I believe that parental rights would have been in the Bill of Rights. Why did they not put it in there? Because this day is unthinkable to them. And let's be clear, this is not an issue for one group, one demographic, one party, or one ethnicity. Parental rights, the very building block of our society, is a fundamental right of every parent, no matter their belief system, to be the ones who guide and direct the upbringing of their children. That's why I'm so grateful that we have people here from so many communities. We've invited the Islamic community, the African immigrant community, we've invited the Jewish community, Christian community, we've invited people from both sides of the aisle and every single demographic. This is not an issue of left or right, but right or wrong. And that's why I'm grateful to have so many people from every background coming here to stand together. You see, I do believe that if we stand together and join our voices, we will not only stop 1312, but we will build a coalition that will make sure this day never comes again. We'll get back to the place where this kind of overreach of government into the family unit will once again be unthinkable. That's the goal. We're deeply grateful, by the way, that tonight is not just about one organization, it's about many organizations. We're grateful for our chapter leaders, we're grateful for our coalition partners, so many who have been on the front lines, standing up for the right of parents to raise their children according to their own beliefs, not the government's beliefs or someone else's beliefs. And if you have not met many of our coalition partners, please do make sure that you go into that room afterwards to see how you can support them. Right now, it's my honor to introduce one of those amazing ladies leading this charge as well, and that is Lori Gimmelstein with Colorado Parent Advocacy Network. Come on up. Lori's going to share with you, she's doing many things to take a stand, but she's going to share something that each and every one of you can do right now.
Thank you, Deborah. Wow, it's wonderful to look out at this incredible crowd of people coming together. And just like Deborah was saying, one of the things that makes Colorado so unique is that all of these parent and citizen-led organizations like our Moms for Liberty chapters and Grandparents for Kids and Gays Against Groomers, we're all working together for the same mission. We all have different work that we're doing, but it's together that we will be successful. And I am so excited that we were able to gather over 33,000 signatures from Coloradans who read this bill and saw it as a overreach of the government into our ability to direct the upbringing, education, and care of our children. So with that said, With 1312 now going to the Senate floor, the petition is still open, and we would like you to sign and share the petition. You can go to coloradoparents.org, and it's right on our homepage. We have a red action button. Just click on that. Again, coloradoparents.org. Please sign and share. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lori. I also want to thank some of our elected officials who are here tonight. We have Representative Scott Bottoms. If you'll take a stand when I mention your name. Thank you. Thank you, Scott. We have Representative Brandy Bradley. Thank you. We have Representative Jarvis Caldwell. Jarvis, thank you so much. We have Alicio Gonzalez. He is with Congressman Gabe Evans' office. Alicio, can you stand? Or wave your hand. There he is. We have Alicia Brown. She's with the Lone Tree City Council. Thank you. And we also have former Congressman Greg Lopez. Did I miss any elected official? Thank you all so much for being here. Now, speaking of amazing ladies, I get to introduce Lori, and now I'd like to introduce another amazing lady. And that is someone who is fighting this fight all over the country and then supporting our great chapter leaders here. That is Tina Deskovich. She is the co-founder and CEO of Moms for Liberty.
Thanks, Deborah. Deborah recently joined our board of directors at Moms for Liberty, and we are so grateful to have her help. And it's ironic that right after she joins the board of directors, being from Colorado, born and raised, right? Born and raised? Raised, at least. Colorado becomes ground zero for parental rights. So it's irony, or it's all in the plan. I'm just going to take a minute because I know we want to get to hear from the parents and the elected officials and those that are fighting on the ground and know what's happening here more than I do in Colorado. But the one thing I do want to do is take a minute to give much due recognition to our Colorado chapter chairs. We have 6 chapters of Moms for Liberty here in Colorado, and 5 of our chapter leaders are here. So please stand and be recognized. Christy Davis from El Paso County. Representative Brandy Bradley from Douglas County. As a side note, we have 8 chapter chairs serving in state legislatures right now around the country and growing with every election. Yuli Ramirez from Weld County. Melissa Martyr, Boulder County. And Christina, where are you, Christina? Larimer County? Did I say it right? Larimer County? From Larimer County. Those ladies, along with so many of the other organizations that are here, really are on the front lines, doing a lot of incredible work to make sure parental rights are protected and that education outcomes are improved in their communities. Now I have the distinct honor of introducing the next 4 people on the agenda. And I'm going to do them all at once so I don't have to keep coming back up here and introducing them. I'm going to turn this directly over to Charlotte Riffle. Charlotte is amazing. I heard her warming up the national anthem, and it's probably going to bring a tear to a few of your eyes. She is a teenager who has been playing varsity softball since her She has been playing softball since her freshman year, and she is currently on the varsity team. She is a true patriot at heart. Her faith also plays a major role in her life, and she actively participates in church activities, using these experiences to grow spiritually and connect with her community. So come on up, Charlotte. And when go ahead, you could clap for Charlotte because she's amazing. After Charlotte, our presentation will be given by Mel Tewahade. I think I got it right. And then following Mel, Christy Davis, our El Paso chapter chair, is going to give the Madison Minute. And Moms for Liberty, at every one of our meetings, we have a Madison Minute named after James Madison, father of our Constitution. It's usually a quote from a founder. We're also going to hear Christy's 3-minute speech. She was at the Capitol yesterday for 10 hours waiting to give that 3-minute speech and never got to be heard. So tonight we're going to let her give her 3-minute speech that she's been dying to give. And then after Christy, who in here knows Jennifer Say? Because Jennifer Say is going to take the stage for a few minutes. All right, I'm going to turn it over to you, Charlotte.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the balls bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Oh, there you are, Mel. I thought maybe you escaped on us.
We thank God, for all these families that are coming together tonight to show support to our children. As was previously indicated, all this civilization that we have here is based on a family. Once you take the family away, I don't know what you will have left. So if you don't have a family, you cannot create this kind of a dynamic society where there's going to be a transition, where there's going to be easier to pass from one generation to another, because we are able to build on a block that's already there. So while we need to modify and update, we will do that. But just to throw your family in this kind of chaos is something that the founding fathers would have never expected, that we'd be talking about this. And we thank God for the Moms for Liberty and the great work that they're doing, what they're facing. The amount of opposition is incredible. But we know that our God is bigger than that. And we will go ahead and pray for our meeting. God, we thank you for this day that you have given us. Thank you for all the blessing that you have blessed us with in this beautiful country, the beautiful freedom, the beautiful liberty that you have given us. May we always be vigilant and expect to stand up to the people that want to basically change it into something unrecognizable. We pray for the families that have already been affected. We pray for the parents, for the mothers, particularly the mothers who cried with their children over this situation, over this unexpected surprise of trying to change children into something that nobody counted on. Lord, may you make this meeting fruitful. May we be heard around the country and be an example on how to change a country peacefully and through our prayers. In Jesus' name, amen.
Hello, welcome everybody. I'm so excited to see a lot of you here. There's a lot of familiar faces and people that I've worked with. So the Madison Minute that I picked today is from Thomas Jefferson. A strict observance of the written laws is doubtless one of the high duties of a good citizen, but it is not the highest. The laws of necessity, of self-preservation, of saving our country when in danger are of higher obligation. To lose our country by a scrupulous adherence to written law would be to lose the law itself. With life, liberty, property, and all those who are enjoying them with us, thus absurdly sacrificing the ends to the means. We as parents and community members must fight back against our government when they create egregious laws that threaten our freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of the press, openly violating these constitutional rights, our state laws and federal laws, and most importantly, our fundamental rights to direct the care, upbringing, and education of our children. We must stand in the gap between government's overreach and our children, for they are the future of this country, and we must give them the best future we can. We do not co-parent with the government. Thank you. And so this was the speech that I went up to the Capitol yesterday and waited so long and didn't get to say. So this is my speech opposing House Bill 251312. Good afternoon, Chair and committee members. My name is Christy Davis. I am a parent and chapter chair of Moms for Liberty in El Paso County. I urge a no vote on this bill. I would like to thank the committee for stripping sections 2, 5, and 8 out. Supporters of this bill argue anything but full affirmation of gender ideology will be classified as abuse. Numerous studies have shown that children taken from their parents suffer harm that never goes away despite any tragedy that may have led to their removal. Life-altering. Children are feeling pressured from external influences. They do not fully understand and are being pressured into declaring a new gender identity that research shows can be detrimental. Removing loving, cautious parents from the equation will only isolate children even more from the people who provide for and truly care about the permanent consequences, and will force children to make decisions they aren't mentally capable of making in their childhood. Vital questions to consider. Who did the sponsors of the bill stakeholder during their research? They have openly admitted they spoke only to those who agree with them and choose to slander those who disagree with this tragic bill that would have separated children from their parents. Please consider who in the state actually wants this bill. Is it really Colorado stakeholders or outsiders pushing to destroy constitutional freedoms that states do not have the right to infringe upon? Misgendering and dead naming is not rooted in facts. When you create laws that force or compel somebody to go along with another person's beliefs, that is a violation of our First Amendment rights. When you force people to go along with a belief system that's rooted in emotions and not facts, you create chaos that no court will ever be able to rule on without a biased viewpoint. This is the definition of compelled speech. Transgender individuals have a right to dress and identify as they choose in this country. That is the beauty of living in the USA. But they do not get to infringe on our rights and force us to go along with their beliefs. Parents will not stay silent. Regardless of our differences, our parental rights and our children's well-being is under assault in this state. A yes vote on this bill will not only undermine our rights as parents and strip away many of the freedoms we are guaranteed under our Constitution, but it will further break our trust that we may have for our legislators to protect our children in this state. This bill will tear families apart, worsen mental health of families, and medicalize children for life. There is nothing scarier to a parent than knowing our children are in danger. Do not fail the parents of the state, and do not fail the children of Colorado. I urge you all to vote no on this bill. Thank you.
Oh, this is high for me. I'm short. I'm Jen Day. I'm a relatively new Coloradan, which you may or may not know. I am the founder and CEO of XXXY Athletics, and we're the only athletic brand standing up for the protection of women's sports. And we are standing up for biological reality. This is about right and wrong, not left and right. I spent my entire life as a Democrat. I'm not anymore, partly because of this, but mostly because of COVID. So I moved to Colorado because in 2021 because it was better than California. Now you can laugh, but here's the thing, it was, and I was a San Franciscan, not just a Californian. For 35 years I lived in San Francisco and I loved it. And you might laugh and you might say, why did you come here? Why didn't you, you could have done better. But here's the thing, it really was better. I mean it. It really was. I came here so that my son could go to school, and he did. I had a kindergartner at the time, and the schools in California were closed for 19 months. And I moved here in March of 2021. I know this is off topic, but this is why I'm going to fight for this state. I moved here in March of 21 so that a kindergartner, my son, could attend school, and he did. And I will always be grateful to Colorado for that. I moved here because the schools were open. My child was isolated, he was alone, he was a depressed 6-year-old, and we got here, and he was fine. He had friends, he ran around, he went to the playground. I picked up my life. I lived in that city for 35 years. I worked in a company for 23 years. I left all of it to come here so that my child could go to school. I will always be grateful to Colorado for that. And I will not watch Colorado descend into California crazy. I won't do it. I'm not moving again. Here's the thing, though. I want to give you a little hope, because as crazy as it feels here right now, and it does, and, you know, for the first time in the last couple months when people say to me, why did you come here from California? I sometimes go, I'm not sure why, for the first time, whereas I used to always say, it's better. I swear it's better. But here's a little hope for you, because this state has a libertarian streak. It has a freedom-loving streak. It has a rugged individualism streak, and it is still present. I live in Denver. I live in a deep blue neighborhood in a deep blue city in a deep blue state, and I have a sign, a yard sign, in front of my house that says, in this house, we believe that women's sports are for XX only. It has never been stolen. It has never been taken down. It has never been vandalized. My neighbors know what I think. They don't all agree with me, but they engage with me and they talk to me, and I still get invited to all the parties and the dinner parties. So that could not happen in California. So I tell you this, it's important. That's like this hope for me. You see what I mean? That couldn't happen in San Francisco. That couldn't happen in California, and it is still happening here. It's still present. But this bill is seeking to control what we think, how we raise our children, what we say. It's exerting the coercive control that only exists in authoritarian regimes, quite frankly. And I won't stand by and let it happen. I've lost everything already. I lost a job I loved, the city I loved, pretty much every friend I ever had. And I can't be canceled a third time, right? So, let's just do this. Let's get this done. I'm not going to give in to this cult-like behavior. And I want to just say, I know everyone is probably going to talk about the violation of parental rights involved in this bill, and that is absolutely paramount. But I want to just speak to the violation of free speech and freedom of thought, because it is such an egregious violation of the First Amendment to tell us what we can say in public to each other. Look, I know there's people here that disagree with me, and I want to hear what they say, because I actually believe in free speech. I believe that we cannot compel speech and tell people what they must say. And this idea that you can criminalize misgendering or determine that that is abuse of some sort, they want to reach into your home and your thoughts and your mind and say, you must believe this. You must believe a lie. You must say what we tell you. This must be your religion. I'm not a religious person. I may be one of the only people in the room that's not. But I believe in freedom of religion. And I believe you get to believe what you do, Tina, and you get to believe what you do, Lori, and I get to believe what I do. I am a strong advocate for children and truth. I've been doing that for 20 years. And I believe in biological reality, and I believe we get to raise our children the way that we determine, barring abuse. And this is not abuse, let me be clear. So this does not count. Calling it that is such a distortion of the truth that I can't even wrap my head around it. But as I said, it goes well beyond parental rights. I'm a business owner. My business is 1 year old. Thank you all for the support, because a lot of you folks, I've seen your faces before. And I do believe it makes a difference, because every time you wear the shirt, and I hear the stories, I know I'm over, but I'm almost done, I swear. You have a conversation. Every time you wear the shirt, you wear the hat, you have a conversation at the soccer field. 9 times out of 10, moms lean in and they say, I agree with you. And it's like this permission structure that they can say it out loud. Sometimes they don't, and that's fine too, and I still have a productive conversation with those people. But I want to say this bill would essentially bar me from operating my business. If I were to say, which I do, if you think it isn't fair or safe for males to compete in girls' sports, stand up, that would be a criminal act. I could not operate my business. I would be told that that is misgendering and that is hate speech and you can't say that. And I would ask then in return, what can I say? And they would say to me, well, if you think it isn't fair or safe for females to compete in girls' sports, which is the stupidest thing ever because everybody thinks that's fine. So it negates and criminalizes my brand, my business. I am fighting for parents and free speech at the most fundamental level. This is un-American. It's a violation of the First Amendment, and it needs to be fought with everything we have. I'm not giving up on Colorado. I'm not moving again. So I am ready to do this. I hope you're with me.
Let's hear it again for Jen Say. Thank you so much. I have a couple of my favorite baseball caps, and one I wore all over Washington, D.C. It started some great conversations, to say the least. Well, one of the reasons we're really here is to hear from some amazing parents who have some stories to share. Because at the heart of all of this, at the heart of what we're fighting for, it starts with the mom, it starts with the dad, it starts with the child, it starts with something that went terribly wrong as soon as the government intruded into their circumstances. One of our amazing parents is finding his way here, but we're going to go ahead and start with 2 wonderful, courageous ladies that are here. May I welcome up Erin Lee. Please come on up and have a seat. And Cynthia Stein, please come on up. And I just got word that I think Jason made it right at the right moment. Is he here? There you are. Thank you. Let's give it up for Jason. He made it. Yes, all right. Wonderful. Well, first of all, I want to thank each and every one of you for your generosity of being here, because it's not easy when you consider what is very personal. The height of privacy inside your home becomes a public conversation, becomes something that you have to now stand up and speak courageously for others. So what I want to start by doing is beginning by just having each one of these parents tell a little bit of their story, and then we'll talk about what's really happening in Colorado with this bill. Erin, let's start with you. Tell us your story and what brought you here.
Thank you, Deb. Well, having gotten to know these 2 parents and others, I almost feel like a fraud, because my story is a horror story with a happy ending. And I hope that we have opened the door for other families to come forward. But 4 years ago now, actually 4 years ago next Wednesday, May 4th, 2021, my barely 12-year-old daughter was lured by her trusted art teacher into a secret gender and sexuality meeting that was disguised as an art club. And outside presenters were brought in, an organization called Skittles for ages 2 to 11 and Splash for ages 12 and up, to talk about gender and sex in secret. They told my daughter, if you're not completely comfortable in your biological sex, that means you're transgender. And what 12-year-old girl at the height of COVID in a new state, a new city, a new school is fully comfortable with herself? So of course she adopted that label. So she was celebrated with stickers and flags and bracelets. They asked who she was sexually attracted to, and she didn't know. They said, that means you're queer. More stickers, flags, and bracelets. They talked about concepts like polyamory, puberty blockers and how to access them, cross-sex hormones, how to see a gender-affirming care therapist in the state of Colorado without parent knowledge or consent, which is law, and how to get a gender-affirming care letter in her school without parent knowledge or consent. And they repeatedly emphasized that parents might not be safe. You don't need to tell your parents about this meeting. And we're so lucky that our daughter came home and broke the rule, which was what you hear in here, keep in here, and told us what had happened to her at school. But it was not as though something bad had happened. She had been glitter bombed with this idea that all of her problems would go away if she just transitions into a boy. The puberty discomfort, that'll go away. The social awkwardness, you'll have this new group of friends. If your parents don't understand, we're your family now. And it led our daughter down a very, very dark path. We actually sought a therapist and learned the hard way that they are legally obligated to only affirm gender-confused children. That's another law that was passed in 2019. And so therapy made her worse. And about 6 months after the incident, we're still at a loss of what to do in this situation. The depression or the confusion had led to depression that led to suicidality, and our daughter left us a suicide note because she did not know how to live in the body that God gave her. And so we took her to her pediatrician, who had us leave the room for the mental health assessment because, again, 12-year-olds are the steward of their own health care in this state. And when we came back, she had already been prescribed Zoloft, a psychotropic drug, and we were bullied with the suicide myth. Would you rather have a living son or a dead daughter? Do you want your daughter to live? I recommend you fill this prescription. And that led to another 2 to 3 months of absolute darkness for our family. And it was actually my husband, who's here in the room, who finally had an honest conversation with her. We stopped being afraid after about 9-10 months of going through this. And he really challenged her on, do you think we don't love you? Do you think we don't accept you? Do you really feel like this is right for you? And it was the off-ramp that she was waiting for. She was waiting for her parents to stop being afraid to talk about this and to just have an honest conversation and give her an out. And she began to cry, no, this isn't right for me. I don't want to do this anymore. And so that was the moment where she started to come out of the darkness. And quick happy ending to the story. It's been 4 years. She's now a happy, healthy, thriving 16-year-old girl. She just gave her first public speech at the Rocky Mountain Summit with CPAN, and there was not a dry eye in the house. And about a year after the incident, we watched What is a Woman together, the Matt Walsh documentary. And while we're watching it, she goes, Mom, why didn't I understand this was happening to me when it was happening? And I said, well, that was by design. They took advantage of you. And she said, how do I make sure this doesn't happen to other little girls? And I said, you have to let me tell your story. And that was the moment where we went very, very public. And I learned that we were not alone, that this is such a pervasive issue, and there are thousands of families like ours who are going through the same situation. And that's why I will not stop talking about our family story.
Thank you, Erin, and thank you so much. And if you don't know, Erin has started an amazing organization called Protect Kids Colorado, another key coalition partner standing together. So thank you, Erin, for that. Well, we're going to come back and ask some questions, but let's continue on. Cynthia, thank you for being here, and why don't you tell us what brought you here tonight?
Sure. My name is Cindy. I live in Durango, Colorado, which is a very small town in southwest Colorado. And my daughter, when she was 16, she met a math teacher at the local high school. At that time, I had just gotten a very aggressive cancer diagnosis. I was going through intense chemo. My daughter is autistic. She has ADHD. She's got depression and anxiety. You name it, she's got it. And my cancer journey was very hard for her. It was hard to watch Mom fight for her life. And I don't think she knew who to go to or how to process. And so this teacher stepped in, and in my opinion, she brainwashed my child. She turned my child against me. I'm assuming she told my child that all of her problems with being autistic and being socially awkward and the anxiety, all of those problems were because she was born into the wrong body and that she was really a boy. And this couldn't be further from the truth. My daughter was a very girly girl. She loved frilly dresses and she loved dressing up. And it wasn't until she met this math teacher that all of that changed. And yeah, it's been a journey. Last December, she left my house, my daughter, and she moved in with this math teacher. and I have not been able to get her back since. The teacher tried to emancipate her in January of this year. That forced me to hire an attorney and fight that, and thank God the judge denied it. But then I got a letter from opposing counsel saying stop contacting our client. So now I'm no longer allowed to have contact with my child. Now she's 18, and there's nothing I can do to protect her. The autism hasn't gone away. The anxiety and depression hasn't gone away. All of these factors that are leading into this thought process are still there. Like Aaron, the therapist that my daughter had chosen that I had no control over, gender affirmed her the whole entire way. And Durango is a small town, so even though I don't have contact with her, I hear things. There's a grapevine. And I hear that this teacher now has her on hormones and that she hates it and it's making her feel bad. And this teacher is introducing all sorts of contraptions and things that I don't think any self-respecting young girl should know about. And that's it.
And Cindy, just to be clear, your daughter was a minor when all this happened. Your story broke out into the national media because when you reached out, and this teacher, who is, I believe, married to a transgender individual, said you were not allowed to see your daughter, you called the police. Can you tell us what happened in that instance? Because let's all remember, she was a minor at this time in your custody.
Yes. So I went to the teacher's house, and from the bottom of their driveway, I called her, and I told her, I said, I'm here for my child. I want you to pack her up and send her down willingly. And her response to me was, well, let me call the attorney. I said, okay, you call that attorney, I'm calling the sheriff's office. And the sheriff's office laughed. They did not support me. They did not make my child come home. They said, there's nothing we can do to help you. So not only does the sheriff's office fail me, the therapist failed me.
And that is on, actually, the body cam footage. You hear it. And when Cindy asks, but this is my child, they're like, well, she didn't seem like she was in distress. And she's like, but she's a minor. This is my child. What we're talking about is basic law here. And you're going to hear from our next parent that what 1312 would spread everywhere is already happening in Colorado. Thank you. And Cindy, we'll get back to you on some more questions. Jason, thank you so much. Thanks, you, Cindy, for making the drive and being here. Would you share your story with us?
Yeah. Thanks for having me. As dismayed as I am about the current political climate, I'm really looking at the events without shock. This is already what I've experienced in the courtrooms of Adams County. And it's just the official black and white of it is finally catching up. The mix of the transgender card is powerful. The mix of pity and victimhood creates a very potent sense of obligation in someone who has empathy. It's very difficult to overcome. In the courtroom, I lost my 9 and 7-year-old, 2 boys. And I'm always going back and thinking about what happened. And I knowingly, lovingly married a bisexual woman. We had a family together. And then, in a very short span of time, just months, she decided she was transgender. I stayed in the marriage. They're watching Queer Eye for the Straight Guy. My 7-year-old is being dressed in women's clothes. And come time for divorce, my 9-year-old boy is suddenly transgender. My 7-year-old is suddenly non-binary. A perfect splitting, if you will, of their mother. The children got isolated by mother from all their maternal family and all of my family. And there's only one person who could look at my children and say, whoever you want to be will be wonderful. Whoever you want to be, I will love you. My job as your father is to give you as much time as possible to make, arguably, the most crucial decision of your life. Who am I? Who will I love? Who will love me? Thank you.
Thank you. And Jason, just a little bit more. Thank you, by the way. Let's give Jason a big round of applause. And Jason, a couple more points of your story, just so everyone can get the full picture of it. You talked, when we spoke, about a couple of points, but I'll just bring up, and then I want to ask you a little bit more about. You talked about how when this began to happen, and your entire nuclear family, 3 people transitioned at the same time, and it dissolved. And your 7-year-old at that time was being put into drag shows with adults, would come out with money in his pockets. That was going on.
Yeah, that was really crazy. The performances were supposed to be for charities. Part of the divorce, my 7-year-old is like, Dad, got to go to this drag show. I'm talking to our family therapist. I do not want my child going to this drag show. Hey, you don't want your son to grow up with shame. Okay, I'll go and try and be supportive. 18-year-olds are on the stage in various stages of undress, and I realized this is not a place I should want my child. Wait a minute, they say it's for charity, but my son comes home with like $50 in his pocket. What type of movement needs to incentivize children?
And I want to say every single person on this stage has paid a big price. Jason went bankrupt, and you allowed me to share this, because of the legal bills and then the child support, even though he was not even allowed to see his children. And Jason, you have no contact with your children now, is that correct?
No, I did not.
Yeah.
I kept hoping that me representing myself after the bankruptcy, they'd be like, wow, this gentleman really cares about his kid. Look at all he's willing to do. Or I thought, hey, this guy has a couple college degrees. He's been an elementary school teacher for 17 years. He's around kids all day long. He's been supportive of the transgender students in his classroom. They didn't see me.
And one last thing I wanted to mention about Jason's case when it comes to the courts is they're already operating right now in Colorado, regardless of 1312. You, Jason, provided your psychological profile as requested, but your ex-wife did not actually submit it. Is that correct?
This one's harsh, and I was hoping we could avoid it. We were both ordered. Actually, it looked like I was pointed out as the bad guy, and I was ordered to have a psychological evaluation. I said, whoa, Your Honor, it's my understanding that whenever the court orders parents to have a psychological evaluation, it's a twofer, like both parents have to go. Judge goes, well, that's not really a matter of law, Mr. Zook, but in this case, seeing as how your wife has 1,700 TikTok videos, and you shared some of those with us in court today, I don't know how we're going to know what's going on. So both of you have to go. So I go. Judge tells the guardian ad litem that had been appointed for the children, you need to take a look at these psychological evaluations. Guardian ad litem comes over to my house, sits down and says, I say, hey, I think this transgender issue, I think it's all smokescreen. I think you just really have a very angry mother who wants the children all to herself. Guardian ad litem goes, I'm going to check into that, Mr. Zook. After the guardian ad litem, who is a member of the LGBTQ community, visits mother's house, the $900,000 house just off a golf course. Hey, Mr. Zook, I have bad news for you. Your older daughter is transgender. I'm sorry, have you ever worked with transgender children before? No, I'm an attorney. Okay. And your younger son, the 7-year-old, the non-binary one, he has a lot to figure out. You need to be prepared for that. So we're back into court. I found a way to willingly and openly file my psychological evaluation, which says, Mr. Zook, at this time, because it can kind of change from day to day, right? Mr. Zook, at this time, does not have a mental illness. Judge kind of rolls her head. I'll accept it. And I would please like to see mother's psychological evaluation. Please, Your Honor, that has not been filed. Well, that did not have to be filed, Mr. Zook. She looks at the guardian ad litem. Was any treatment recommended for you, mother, who is not under oath at this time? Guardian ad litem says, I'm sorry, Your Honor. Did you want me to answer that question? Dodge. Opposing counsel speaks. I'm sorry, Your Honor. Did you want me to answer that question? No. I would like the mother to please answer that question. Remember, she's not under oath. No, Your Honor. My time is up in the courtroom. Somehow, mother's psychological evaluation remains unlooked at by an attorney or a guardian ad litem or a judge officially in court.
Thank you, Jason.
Oh, and I got ordered back for another one.
I'm sorry. It's not a laughing matter, but I'm really sorry to hear that. Let's talk about this common thread. There are laws right now, even beyond 1312 in Colorado, that allow interactions with your children that you have absolutely no say in. You have no idea what's going on, and that's going on right now in my alma mater school district of Cherry Creek School District, where they can transition children without parents' knowledge or consent. In each one of these stories, there was a trusted adult. Can each one of you talk about that element? And, for instance, what I know that they said to your daughter, Erin, about not telling her mom.
Yeah, well, my daughter was barely 12. She was vulnerable. She trusted that her teacher had her best interest, and I trusted that, that they had her best interest. And I was wrong. They totally took advantage of her, and they manipulated that term, trusted adult, and took advantage of a very vulnerable little girl.
And I think I remember you saying that they said, don't tell your parents about what happened here. I know when I was growing up, what was the number one thing we told our kids, and we were told? If someone tells you don't tell your parents, that's a red flag. And that's a red flag right now with trusted adults in these positions. Many great teachers, many great people in our schools, but this is what's happening. Let's talk about the trusted adult situation for you, Cindy.
Yeah, kind of a similar situation, only my daughter just went silent. She withdrew from the family. She stopped talking. She stopped engaging. And due to the autism and just being wired a little differently, I thought maybe she should be an angsty teenager. And I had no idea how far it had gone. I think she was being influenced for at least a year before I got wind of what was brewing.
Yeah. And I want to talk, because we've talked about the trusted adults, the guardian ad litem in your situation. Cindy, I want to mention something very specifically. So our daughter is autistic. So I always look at the statistics, and I just want to share this so everyone has a perspective. In the UK, where they have been doing transitioning for far longer than the United States, they have a national social health care program, so they keep copious records. In the UK, they have found that autistic children make up 2% of the population, but 35% of those who are transitioned. In fact, the Tavistock Clinic, once one of the leading clinics in the entire world, was shut down in 2023 because it was found that they ignored the fact that 97.5% of the children they transitioned were either on the spectrum, had ADHD, or some other underlying issue. Cindy, from your perspective, what role did your daughter being autistic, ADHD, and having other issues play in this situation?
I believe it led to it 100%. She is very trusting. I think with the autism, she was at a very vulnerable time in her life with my cancer journey, and she reached out for something, anything, and that anything took advantage of her fully with poor judgment and maybe a little bit of impulsiveness with the autism and just believing the lie.
Yeah. And one other statistic I want to share real quickly is a lot of this, there are people that truly deal with gender dysphoria, but the UK also showed in their National Institute of Healthcare study, suicides go up 12 times after transitioning because oftentimes underlying issues are ignored. Aaron, I want to ask you this question. You had a happy ending. If 1312 were in place when you were going through the situation with your daughter, Chloe, and the portion that has, at least for now, been taken out, the custody portion, where do you think you would be right now?
Well, I actually learned through public record request that 3 days after this art club incident, when we expressed concern with what had happened and stated that we were not going to affirm our daughter's gender confusion, the school district involved Child Protective Services for a well child check at our home, and a mandated reporter was sent to our home to check on the well-being of our kids to make sure we were not abusing them. And I firmly believe, well, first of all, if my daughter had explicitly said even back then, my parents are not affirming my trans identity, we would have lost her. But especially if 1312 had been in place, we would have stood no chance. They would have removed our daughter from our loving home. And as I said, trans identity made her suicidal. And so we've asked our daughter, where do you think you would be today if we had affirmed all along, if we had called you the boy name and gone along with the trans identity? And she said, Mom, I don't think I'd be alive. So we would have lost our daughter one way or another.
Well, I appreciate your continuing to fight against 1312 for that reason. Jason, you had an interesting analogy when we were talking, because obviously yours and Cindy's stories are what's already happened in Colorado when the courts are already introduced because of a custody battle. They're already brought in, and so it's already allowing them to make the decision against the parent that does not stand up for transitioning. You talked about if 1312 passes, and it passes or they put back in, and let's be clear, this bill still has to go back to reconciliation and be voted on in the House and the Senate. So if it went beyond what your situation is, you compared it to a dirty bomb. Do you want to just say what that would be like?
Yeah, if the analogy was in divorce proceedings, you know, there are some horrible things that can happen, and sometimes they're true. So like the thermonuclear bomb would be physical, emotional, verbal abuse. To be accused of that is awful. It's terrible. And sometimes that does happen. But there's systems and there are mechanisms in place where a parent can defend themselves. And then maybe like the next level would be a tactical nuke. You know, maybe a parent wants to play the card of sexual abuse. And that is even more terrible and even more awful to use against a parent. But again, there are mechanisms and systems in place where that parent is considered innocent until proven guilty. But this bill, in the language That is a dirty bomb. That is a dirty nuke. What that's going to do is there is no system in place. There is no mechanism to defend yourself. You are guilty without an ability to prove your innocence. I mean, if they take away your First Amendment right in a courtroom, I mean, a nuclear bomb just went off in my head.
Thank you.
Say something really
Yes, go ahead.
I just want to add really quick with the CPS involvement. Yes, they were already practicing these theories well before this bill came out. My daughter ran away in November, and she went to the teacher's house, and I had no idea where she was for 24 hours. Once that resolved, CPS did get involved, and when it was brought to the surface that I wasn't going to gender affirm my child, because I think there's other issues at play here. I don't think that she's transgender. CPS got involved, and they said, well, if you don't gender affirm, she's not being released into your care.
Thank you. Well, I want to thank each one of these panel members because they are taking their personal experience and fighting for everyone else so this does not happen further. So we must stand together against 1312 and then roll it back to where it's already happening in these families. Let's give them a huge round of applause for their courage and their generosity.
Okay, just so you guys can gauge with time, I know when I'm an audience member, I want to know what's going on. We're going to have one more panel, policy panel, and then we're going to open it up to the audience for questions. And so I'm thankful that you all are being so patient and so considerate and just listening, and there's been no outburst or bad behavior. And so for a town hall, I think we're doing really well. I appreciate the consideration. If I could have Representative Bradley join us, please, and Representative Jarvis Caldwell join us, please, and Laura. Yes, come on up, please, please, please. I'm going to let you guys do. Yeah, just have a seat in any order. It doesn't matter. I think we need one. Do we need one more stool now? Yeah, one more stool. You can leave it right there. I'm going to move the podium. We need one more for the moderator. One more for the moderator. That's perfect. They're going to put you right here. I'll let you go first. There we go. We're short on microphones tonight, so hopefully you guys are all friendly enough to share. And I can share. You're going to have to pass the mic. You hear me, ladies? Yes. Don't fall over. Oh, yeah. They don't need notes. It's all good. Well, are you both attorneys? That's what they said. Yeah. One's they're attorney-like. Politicians don't have All right. So we do appreciate the parents that just spoke to share their personal stories. And now we're going to hear from two lawmakers that have been experiencing what's going on at the Capitol right now. And then we're going to hear from policy experts and attorneys that understand the impact of this bill, the impact this bill could have nationally and far-reaching. So let's just start and go down the line if we can. Introduce yourself and share a little bit about your thoughts about 1312.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So my name is Jarvis Caldwell. I represent northern El Paso County, so Air Force Academy, Monument, Black Forest, Palmer Lake, that area right there. So kind of how I came to be on this stage is I'm on Judiciary Committee, and which is where House Bill 1312 first went through. Now, to give you some context here, on a Friday, it was March 28th, we adjourned for the day, and it was about 4 p.m., and I think we all went home for the weekend. And then on Monday afternoon, the chairman of the committee, Javier Mabry, a Democrat, just kind of nonchalantly went up to the well and said, oh, and by the way, I'm adding a bill to the calendar tomorrow for our committee. It's House Bill 1312. Now, just because we know how the numbers go, 1312, that's a very late bill. So I knew that was a new bill, and I didn't recognize the number. And so I just, at the time, I thought to myself, 1312, I haven't heard that one. Went back to my office, looked it up, and then realized how insanely radical it was. And the fact that we didn't even realize it because they introduced it on a Friday, and we had went home, and then they're telling us Monday afternoon that in less than 24 hours this thing was going to be in committee, that just completely caught us off guard. And myself and Representative Bradley and Aaron Lee, where's Aaron sitting at? I think she might have stepped out for a second. Okay. I mean, just completely instrumental in like rallying the troops and getting people there on a very, very short notice. There was 220 people in less than 24 hours, and it was about a 50-50 split, which the bill sponsors, we found out, had worked on this bill for over a year. So they had a year to get together witnesses. We had less than 24 hours, and we matched their witnesses in less than 24 hours. And I can expand on it later, but that's kind of how it came here. So I had to listen to the first time it came through committee.
Yes, Brandy Bradley, and I represent rural and urban parts of Douglas County. Mama bear of 4 wonderful little boys. Physical therapist by nature, was not going to get into this arena until they closed our schools for COVID and for no purpose whatsoever, and just started going to school board meetings, and here we are. You're lucky. Just kidding. You know, I heard from Jarvis, and I think being friends with Aaron Lee and Lori Gimmelstein and other friends, when he told me about it, I thought, oh no, this is going to be really bad. I tried to pass a parental rights amendment to bring to the voters. In the state of Colorado, they don't like the voters to vote on anything except for their bad policy. They don't like you to have any petition clauses or anything that will benefit the people of Colorado. And so I knew that the goal of the Democrats of Colorado is to take your children. Government is their God. They love to pass 700 bills every session because it's the nanny state. I don't think they can go to the bathroom without being told to go to the bathroom in this state. They have a resolution for everything, 700 bills every session, and they think that we need to be taxed more, feed more, enterprise more, and now they think that you can't raise your children so they know what's right, even though there's no scientific evidence or systematic reviews. So for me, it's a little bit different of a scenario, just as a side. 1312, as a healthcare worker, I tried to pass a bill to not allow puberty blockers for children under the age of 18. When you're an adult, you can make those decisions. We can't sit there and say that children can't buy ammunition or own a gun or vote or enter into the armed forces at a certain age, but they can gender affirm as an 8-year-old. And they're doing that at Denver Health. We know they are because Tanner Stage 2 starts as early as age 8. As a healthcare worker, I sign a Hippocratic oath to do no harm. And when there's no systematic reviews and all other countries are pausing or have banned non-FDA puberty blockers for children, it is horrific to tell parents and these children that this is okay to do. And so for me as a parent, my responsibility is to protect other children. As me as a healthcare worker, my responsibility is to protect other children. I think parents and children are being led a lie. They have been put profit over their children's heads. And it's a sad thing for me to sit here and say as a healthcare worker, to watch doctors do this to children with no research, no systematic reviews, because the money is more important than the research, and it's sad. It's sad that they're selling these children mutilation and lifelong sterility, and we look like the bad guys, that we're this Christian conservatives and we don't want this. That's not true. We don't want children harmed, and the medical profession is harming these children, and it's an outright lie that they're selling, and by transgendering these children, it's about $1 million that the healthcare professionals and Big Pharma is making off of them, and it's horrific to watch, and it's sad that these parents won't wake up and listen to what we're saying, and it's sad that these parents are being robbed of their children because Big Pharma is making so much money off these kids' backs.
Thank you. Kate, I think probably everybody here is a little less familiar with you and with Laura, so if you could introduce
Yes.
yourself and tell us who you are and your thoughts on what's going on here.
Yeah, so I'm Kate Anderson. I'm an attorney and the director for the Center for Parental Rights at Alliance Defending Freedom. We're a legal organization that works nationwide to protect our civil rights. And we started kind of following COVID, recognizing what was happening with parental rights around the country, and we decided to stand up a group of attorneys as a litigation group at ADF to work to defend parental rights. And so I run that group, and we've got 6 attorneys now that full-time are litigating to try to defend and ensure that parents get to be the ones to direct their kids' upbringing and education. So I just want to say thank you for being here to find out about this bill, to stand up for kids, because parental rights are kids' rights. Kids need their parents to be able to walk alongside them when they are dealing with really difficult things like identity, like growing up, like the education they're getting in school. And I'm working with parents every day. And thank you to the 3 that share their stories. I'm walking along with parents that are in that boat too, that have been lied to about their school, by their school, about their child's struggles with identity. And I'm talking all the time now to kids that are on the other side of it. One in particular that went through a story very much like the ones we heard. And this young woman is now a very happy teenager because her mom said no when she was told that her daughter was transgender and would commit suicide. She wanted to just wait, to pause, to give her daughter room to figure out who she really was. Just get everybody out of the way so her daughter could deal with what she was really facing. And it took about 2 weeks before this girl said to her mom, I think that all the affirmation I was receiving at school and with counselors really messed me up. And she now shares your daughter's heart, Erin, in wanting to help other kids find out about this, and just feel free to struggle, but to also wait and not make any lifelong decisions, and to know that their parents are the ones that want to walk that walk with them and want to help them. We're coming up on a kind of important and nerdy for us lawyers anniversary, but in June it will be the 100th anniversary of the Pierce decision, which was a landmark Supreme Court decision that said parents have the right to direct the upbringing and education of their kids. And that has been repeated over and over again. Yeah. And this term, the U.S. Supreme Court took 2 cases on parental rights issues. I was just there yesterday, involved in one of them. And so I think you're going to see more work from the courts in our arena, really standing up for this. This issue is so important. It's important to me as a lawyer and as a mom. I've got 3 little kids of my own, and I want to be able to raise them the very best I can so that they can be happy and healthy adults. And I know that's what all parents want. And this bill is making that very difficult.
Laura, you have to share the mic, Kate. You got to pass it.
All right. My name is Laura Hanford. And first and foremost, like most people here, I'm a mom. I have 5 kids. I live in Fairfax County, which was a crazy school board before school boards were a thing that everybody knew about 10 years ago. So my background, actually, I got here in a little bit of a roundabout way. My background is in international human rights and religious freedom. I did the human rights work for the U.S. Embassy in Romania about 30 years ago on all kinds of minorities who were facing difficulties there under the regime. It was right after Ceausescu had fallen. And so I got to see firsthand what it looked like to live in a society that forced an ideology on its people and that encouraged people to snitch on each other. So I then came back and worked in the U.S. Congress on similar issues, and my husband and I met there and wrote together the International Religious Freedom Act of '98, which set up the structure that our government now uses to promote religious freedom overseas, negotiate with other countries to better their religious freedom laws and this sort of thing. So we have a lot of experience, and my husband was then appointed to be that ambassador under George Bush for both terms. I, at the time, was working for a Democrat in the House. He was a Republican in the Senate. And I say that because this is the same kind of issue. This is not an issue that only affects one party or another. I have friends and parents from all kinds of different beliefs and backgrounds that are caught up in this, suffering from it and opposing it. It's an amazing group of people. I just love Colorado. These people that I've met just today are amazing. But it's true like this with parents all over the country. So I became involved in my school. trying to push back when gender ideology was essentially shoved down our throats 10 years ago. I served for 3 years on our school sex ed committee, thinking I'll try to light a candle rather than curse the darkness. And I was thrown off because I made a motion to use only the term sex and not the ideological term sex assigned at birth. And I continued sort of trying to be involved in various ways at our state level. I told the story, documented the story of a girl called Sage. If there's a chance, I'll talk a little bit more about her later. But she was harmed terribly by these affirming policies and secrecy policies in school and in courts. And so I got involved in a bill called Sage's Law in Virginia that we're still trying to pass because, like in Colorado, Virginia Democrats, unlike Virginia normal Democrats in families, the politicians are committed to lying to parents. So we, after working on that, I was asked by Heritage to come and help other states across the U.S., and I do some work at a national and international level, too, on these issues, trying to support families who want to protect their kids.
Thank you. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the current status of the bill, because I'm not sure everybody knows. It's been moving so fast. If you weren't awake till 2 a.m. last night on X like I was, just scrolling, trying to absorb everything, you guys were there, live, front and center. Where is the bill? Where is it going? Is it going back and forth? Or where are we with the amendments? If you could share maybe some, and then Representative. I keep wanting to call you by your first names, both of you, which I feel like is inappropriate. So I've been called worse. You've been called worse in the last 24 hours, as a matter of fact. So if you could just kind of split up a little bit and tag team here on what's going on with the bill.
Yeah. So it started in House Judiciary, then it went to the floor for second, third reading. We voted on it, and so here's the thing: is with all this media attention on it, and just all this outreach. I think they said 20,000 or 30,000 phone calls and emails. They paused it. I mean, they were trying to rush this thing through. They used procedural rules to stop us from debating on it and just push it straight to a vote because they didn't want us to go out there and speak on it and then share clips of us speaking on it to get it out there. So they rushed it through the House really quickly, and then just nothing. We heard nothing about it. So last night, it finally went to the Senate. I imagine a lot of people who are here tonight were there. It went till, I think it was, I stayed up too listening to it. It was 1 o'clock in the morning, I believe. They heavily amended it. So Section 2, the custody section that really got everybody stirred up, they completely removed that. And that was like 3 pages of the bill. And then they did some edits on Section 3, which has to do with not cooperating with out-of-state investigations. And there were some other issues there with Article 4, Section 1 of the U.S. Constitution, the full faith and credit clause, that explicitly says you will states will honor other states' court rulings. So they made a little adjustment there to try to get around that. They removed the gender-based dress code portion of it, if I'm not mistaken, that's Section 5. But the bill still says that a child can pick any uniform they want. So, like, I'm a charter school board member. You know, we have boys' uniforms and girls' uniforms. Right now, if this bill passes, basically a boy can go to the girls' section and say, I want to wear that skirt. And with this bill, we can't stop that. And so that's a portion. And then Section 8, which is the anti-discrimination piece, they tweaked it. I don't think they completely removed it. They made some edits there. But, yeah, it's still a really bad bill. And it's still... I keep telling people, I go, sorry, I think I'm spinning as I'm talking. I use my hands. So with the Section 8 part, you know, somebody asked, why are they trying to do this to business? That had to do with gay marriage, right, and him refusing to bake a cake. I'm a little cynical, but I think if this bill passes and is signed into law, the moment it goes into effect, you're going to have someone, an activist, go to his cake shop and say, I'm transgender, my biological name or given name is this, I want this name on a cake, and if he refuses, they're going to sue him all over again. But instead of on the gay marriage issue, it's going to be on the transgender issue. That's where we're coming to. Why are you
planting ideas?
That's already happened. I represent Jack.
Oh, there you go.
So and that was the second trial. So, which he just won at the Colorado Supreme Court. So,
wonderful.
Hopefully that's done. Followed by, I'm so glad that the free speech piece is coming up because that's critical. Free speech is critical to everybody. And when the government is telling us what we have to say or what we have to believe, that squelches any debate, any learning, any discussion of issues. And it's dangerous for both sides of an issue because political winds change. And if we have a system where you can compel people to say things or think things, that's dangerous for everybody, no matter what they think. And the Supreme Court has weighed in on that in Colorado with 303 Creative, who is also my client. And she won at the U.S. Supreme Court just recently because Colorado is trying to compel her speech through the public accommodation law, the exact same law they're trying to compel speech through now, just through a different method. And it is something to watch because it looks like they're moving stuff around in the bill, and they took out some of the language, but then they put it in another definition. So we're really going to have to watch to see what ultimately passes, but I think you're going to see litigation.
Representative Bradley, where is the bill going and where could it go? Where do you think it's going? Where is it likely going? What are they likely going to add back? I mean, these are a lot of questions. Just you know where I'm going with this.
Well, that is the million-dollar question. So we have heard that it will go onto second reading tomorrow on the Senate floor, which means we are working this weekend. We have 6 days left. We are holding on by a thread, but we will continue to fight because we still have really bad bills coming, just to be very clear. So it will go on the Senate floor for second reading tomorrow, possibly third reading on Saturday, and then it still has to be referred back to the House to ask us to adopt or not adopt the Senate amendments. And we have some strategies that we'll be discussing with Aaron Lee and CPAN and Gays Against Groomers that we're not willing to share in the presence of others tonight. So we'll keep that close to the vest. But I just want to tell everyone, there's other big issues, right? We're the sixth most regulated state. And so the business community needs to show up to these conversations because sixth most regulated state, and there's carve-outs in this, or there's things in this bill that's really going to affect the business community. We have 24% of Denver restaurants closing. They are not re-signing their leases. They're out of here. They're done. I say, and Jarvis and I say, we think Wyoming's behind a lot of these bills because they're getting all of our customers. Like, we buy eggs in Wyoming, fireworks in Wyoming, guns and ammunition now in Wyoming. I think the landlords are all going to Wyoming. I think Wyoming is behind these bills. I say it from the well. I think Wyoming is behind the bills because flee to Wyoming. Real quick, I tried to pass a child rape bill in the state. We give probation to child rapists. You can rape a child once, twice. You can rape 10 children in our state. As long as you do it once or twice, the criminals will get probation in our state. Be very clear, they are trying to normalize pedophilia in this state. I will say it on the mic. They are trying to make minor-assisted pedophilia normal here. Because if they didn't, they would put these people in jail. And so just be very clear, the people behind this bill are also behind bills like that. I also incorporated trusted adult into that, and they killed that bill. I had Democrat support in both the House and the Senate, and the Democrats could not believe that bill was killed. So just wake up, Coloradans, because that's what their intent is.
Thank you. Can you pass it down to Laura, please? Sorry, Laura, talk a little bit about where this bill could not the actual bill go, but where the tentacles could lead to, or what other bills will we see like it? Where do you think it'll spread to? Will other people pick it up around the country?
Sure. I've had a chance to be really focusing on this question of abuse, and it's really a perverse redefinition of it to mean not affirming a child's feeling that they are the opposite sex. And to kind of go to it's a concept that's spread for parents who are caught in this. All of a sudden, they feel like they're in the twilight zone. You talk to all of them, and it's like that. It's like they're in an alternate reality where up is down and down is up. And the reason is that this concept has been infiltrating and taught and present for decades. I mean, 10 years ago, I didn't know what a transgender child was when the whole thing hit our schools. But they've been working at it for a long time, training judges, training social workers, training teachers. It's just a foundational part of what all these groups are taught. And there's two underlying principles there. One is that affirmation is good, unilaterally, wholeheartedly good. That's it. And I just want to point everyone to the report that came out today. That's the first umbrella review of systematic reviews in the world. Really, it takes all the studies that have ever been done, good and bad, on gender-affirming care, and HHS just put that out. And I read it because it's not a political document, it's a scientific document, and it shows very clearly that we do not have evidence that this is good. We have a lot of our evidence that it's bad. But the second principle is that somehow our authentic self is our feelings. So as parents, we know that our kids' feelings change all the time. We know our own feelings change all the time. But in gender world, a 3-year-old knows who they are immutably. How many of you even remember what you thought when you were 3 or said? A 12-year-old supposedly knows this. A 12-year-old can't consent to sex, can't smoke, can't get a tattoo, can't even understand algebra developmentally, and has to be twice that age before the part of their brain that assesses risk is even fully formed. So all of that is to say those two things underlie this concept that it's somehow unsafe not to affirm everything a child says. And I want to be really clear here. Things like this that pretend to be child-centered, they're not. When you lower the age of consent for a child, it is never about the welfare of a child. It is always about medical or sexual access, period. And I just want to say that really clearly because someone is in charge of that child. It's either the state or it's the parents. No one is going to love that child, absent, of course, parents that are genuinely abusive. We have laws in place in every state for that. Someone is going to direct the care of that child, not the child, the people that set themselves up as the trusted adults. And the only ones who genuinely have the interest of the child at heart are the parents at that level. So, but this concept it's obviously already in practice in Colorado, even though it's not officially stated in law. In fact, I was doing a review of these statutes just today, and Colorado would be the first to officially put misgendering and dead naming in its Non-Discrimination Act if this were to pass. Even California and Oregon say not to discriminate against gender identity, which is problematic enough because it's not the same kind of protected class as others, but none of them actually specify the speech. This one does, and it does for parents as well. None of the other abuse statutes in the states have what Colorado did. So.
That's huge. And so, Kate, that is a perfect segue into you. The section of the bill that puts misgendering and dead naming in, what kind of legal ramifications could that have for schools, parents, business owners, et cetera, in the state of Colorado if 1312 passes?
It's exactly the speech issue we've been talking about, and it's parents, it's educators, it's businesses, and all the ways that could possibly impact signs that they put up, things that they put on their blogs. It was under publishing, but then publish isn't actually defined. So it has an ability to really tentacle out, but at its core, it's trying to control speech of everyone in the state on this issue, and that's dangerous.
So
unconstitutional.
Is the bill clear on what happens when you violate that speech, or is that going to be now left to the courts and the unknown, and what's going to happen is, it's going to have to be all litigated?
My understanding is that it would be a violation of what's CADA, the Colorado Anti-Discrimination Law, which is the law that was being challenged with Masterpiece Cake Shop and 303 Creative and these other cases. And it carries certain penalties. Their significant fines is the typical one that you see.
Yeah, and it's almost like they planned this out because was it today we voted on thirds or concurrences? So under CADA, the Colorado Anti-Discrimination Act, we also passed a bill to increase the penalties under that same law. So as they're pushing 1312 through and they're saying that, hey, misgendering or dead naming could fall under this CADA law, they're also increasing the penalties at the same exact time with a completely different bill. So I'm cynical. I think it's all working together. But
I would just add, too, on these kinds of public accommodation laws that we're talking about, that many, many states have them, many cities have them, and they've been an area that started out in the original civil rights movement, but then has grown far beyond the protections they were intended to have. And so you're seeing added categories that are protected, and you're seeing added penalties and expansion of what it applies to beyond just certain businesses, but into nonprofits. There's question as to whether religious schools and churches are going to be implicated by this. And so you can think of all of the ways that this is going to come out. And in other states, there are criminal penalties under some of these. So it wouldn't be a far stretch for Colorado to add that later, and then that gets pulled in. There are criminal penalties to something like this, and you kind of can see how it just continues to roll.
Okay, I think go ahead, and then we're going to turn it over to the audience to ask questions of the whole panel. So,
just to come back to this question of abuse, this specific way that Colorado tried to do it obviously has come to a bit of a halt this time around. It's already happening in practice. California did the same thing on a custody point. They tried to put the same law in place, and then Newsom didn't sign it because he has political ambitions and knew that wouldn't fly. And we're essentially seeing the same dynamic here. But I think the issue is once you start to define abuse this way, that is the justification for everything else. It's the justification for school secrecy. And there are millions of kids in this country that live in districts where the schools will lie to the parents, and this kid could be Johnny at school and Joanna at home, and the parents would never know for years. And then the kid can just get hormones the minute they turn 18. So everything else, the fact that foster care placements are being denied, that we're losing thousands of kids to foster homes for kids who desperately need them, all because they're not potentially affirming, even though they're safe in every way. And everything else, the judges, like I said, the social workers, the teachers, this is so pervasive and so deeply believed by the people that genuinely love children and want to protect them, but are deeply, deeply misled and deceived into what that actually looks like.
Thank you. Yes, Representative Bradley.
So we passed those bills last year in Colorado. We passed 1039, non-legal name change, and foster bill of rights. So we are going to have kids on wait lists in foster care system because they won't let nice Christian conservative families foster care them. And so they're painting themselves into a corner.
Thank you. Okay, we do have a little bit of a problem with the microphones, so we only have two. I'm trying to think about the best way to do this. The other microphones aren't working. Okay, if everyone wants to ask a question, could line up over there. And then we'll see if we can do without a microphone. I'll repeat the question. You all continue to share. I'm going to try to maintain decorum. I'm going to ask you all to maintain decorum. We all don't have to agree, but we do have to be considerate of one another. If you're screaming profanities, we're going to ask the officers to ask you to leave. If you're screaming and yelling, and we're not going to get anywhere. I loved how Jennifer opened us up tonight, saying we can all think differently. She's got her sign in the yard. Her neighbors don't agree, and no one's stealing her sign. So let's just stick to that principle tonight. Have some healthy debate, discussion, and questions. And if you can speak really loud, and I will try to. For the live streams, I will try to repeat your question to you all. We'll see how this goes. If not, we'll have to put one of the mics out there and one of them up here.
Hey everybody, my name is Sven Sharpen. This question isn't really for any specific person. It's really just for, I guess, whoever sets these events up. I'm autistic, by the way. I'm 21. I'm from Douglas County. Many of the kids being transitioned and being stolen from their families, like Cindy was talking about, are autistic, and these are my peers, the people I can relate to the most. And I know the reason why, so it's like, how can I actually get my voice out? I mean, I'm already doing everything that I'm told to do, like I just did that yesterday, so that's great. But like, what can I do from where I'm at right now to be able to like speak publicly about all of this and how I can help autistic youth? Again, I know exactly why we struggle. It boils down to the state-sponsored
It's a great question. I'm going to repeat the question, and then any one of you that might want to respond to him. He is a 21-year-old young man who is autistic. Is that correct? I don't want to misstate that. And he would like to help and get involved in the movement, how to organize other autistic young people that might want to gather together to make a difference. Is there anyone up here that has any suggestions for this young man?
I'll just say really quick, Sven, I see you everywhere, and whether it's online or it's at the Capitol and it's coming and testifying, like that's, I would say that's step one, and you're awesome at it because I see you all the time. Yeah. And so I feel like you're already doing it, so I'm going to pass the microphone down because there may be better ideas. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that's great. I saw what you also posted yesterday, which was wonderful. You're already doing what you need to do, but there are some other wonderful young people that are doing what you're doing, and I will happily connect you with them.
And I'll just add, young man, what's his name? Sven. I'll just add that you need a logo and a name of an organization as the founder of Moms for Liberty, and you need some T-shirts. So maybe talk to Jen Say, who can help you get some T-shirts with your new name and your new logo. And
I'm thinking of International Association for Autistic Freedom.
It works. All right. Thank you.
My name's Tom Owens. I live in southeast Aurora. And I've got a couple of questions. Does House Bill 25-1309 kind of tie to this 1312?
Representative Bradley, you just answered the last one, so or do you want to take it? I'm going to try to spread it around.
Yes, it's in committee today.
Okay. And the second question is all this hoopla. I've heard that it's going to private schools and Christian schools. It'll be a crime if on this. Is that true or false?
There's confusion on that topic. It kind of depends on how the final language turns out. There are religious protections in some of the laws that are being discussed to change here, but they haven't been tested in court. So I think there's just no one's entirely sure, but depending on where they put the language, how it all comes down, they certainly could be at risk.
Thank you. Next question, sir. Hold on.
Yeah.
I forgot to restate the last gentleman's question. I don't want to do it again. So, tell me your name again. Rich. This is Rich. He's with Gays Against Groomers, and your question is?
My question is, last night we set a record for the number of people who signed up to testify in committee hearings and district.
Amazing. Thank you, guys.
Over 700 people, with 500 of them opposing this piece of legislation. We also saw over 100,000 emails sent to our state senators and over 20,000 phone calls opposing this bill made to the state capitol. I just want to know, specifically to the legislators, when we see this number of people showing up and fighting against this bill and saying no, and we still see Democrats specifically in this legislature, many of them appointed, not elected by the people, by the way, voting in favor of these things, what is your suggestion and what is your advice to the people of Colorado to ensure that, A, our voices, because over 500 people did not get to have their voice heard in committee yesterday, but also to ensure that we have actual tools and arrows in the quiver to shut down this egregious assault on parental rights, free speech, and the Constitution?
Okay, whoever's going to answer that, can you restate the question a little bit, please?
I think it is, how do we get involved without our bubble being burst? Is kind of what it was.
I would like to, but into the record, or for those that are
Yes.
at home watching, there was a record number of, I'm not sure if that has been said yet
About
tonight.
500 people got their voices censored, essentially. Their First
But
Amendment
there was a
rights
record
taken
number
away.
of people to sign up to
people
speak in the
signed up. Mm-hmm.
Senate yesterday. And I love that, both sides. Like, civic engagement gets me really excited. So congratulations to all of you, however you stood on the bill, that you took the time to show up and share your voice.
Absolutely. And just for the record, Rich traveled Eastern Slope, Eastern Plains, 2 Western Slope. 3.5 hours of sleep last night. It was a long night for Protect Kids Colorado, and he is a champion for parental rights. So give it up for that, man. We feel your pain. We get Rule 14 and Rule 16, which means we can't stand for our constituents. It's very, very frustrating. But don't lose hope. I think we're tip of the spear. And, we're shedding light in a very dark state. There are very bright states that have no light being shined on them. And they are very dark, even though they're very lit up. So when we see that, it helps us fight even harder. And it keeps us going. We have 6 days left. We are on fumes right now. And we will continue to full throttle for you guys. We will continue to press the accelerator for you guys and continue to fight. We will push it. So for me, it is getting the message outside the building because it has been stifled inside the building. And so we are getting that. We are on Fox. We are on Daily Insider. We are going national. We've never seen that, right? You held a rally last year. Few people showed up. This year, many people showed up. So we're getting the word out. And I think we're the tip of the spear. And I think that we're going to see some really good things for my home state. So
thank you. Next question.
Hello, my name's Sunshine. I have a question. In 2022, there was 2,500 deaths by gun violence for children between the age of 1 and 17. Why is trans rights a more important topic than that? And does it have a connection to your far-right agenda?
Okay, I want to get your question right for the at-home audience. You asked, go over the numbers again so I can repeat them correctly. 2,500 children died by gun violence in 2022.
Why is that more important than chasing trans kids trying to get expression and comfort?
Why is that more important than chasing trans kids that are trying to express and receive comfort? Got it right. Okay.
Is that connected to your connections to far-right groups like your conservative backing and the Cowboys?
Okay. I don't know really anything.
Oh, you want me to answer that question? So I wouldn't say one issue is more important than the other. There are organizations, Moms Demand Action, that are fighting like tooth and nail for gun violence against children and gun violence in general. They have a huge following. They have a whole lot more money than we have also. For me, my experience was serving on a school board and watching parental rights erode. It's something I became passionate about, and it's the organization that I decided to start. So I wouldn't say one is more important than the other. I think they're very different. I find this issue very concerning, which is why we started Moms for Liberty. Thank you so much for your question.
Legal guardianship. They can get independent consulting with social workers and other people in their life. That's not me and my wife at all. If she A wants to be adopted or parental legal guardianship, and B, when she did choose to be adopted by us, she chose to change her first and last name. She did that because she wanted to leave her previous identity and life behind. She wanted to assume a new identity. And she's cis, but at what point are children that are minors allowed to make major life choices independently with trusted adults, and when can they not?
I think that's a good question for the attorney. You could go ahead if you want, but I do think maybe Kate should.
Okay. You can start.
You can start, but I'd like to maybe end with Kate on this one.
Yeah. Well, first off, so I'll let the attorney give guys the legal advice because it kind of sounded like a legal question. I just want to say I appreciate y'all being here and being very respectful, and I think it's worth a round of applause. And I imagine we may not agree on a lot, but I really do appreciate the respectfulness, and thank you for asking a question. Yeah, thank you.
And I don't have a clear legal answer because there isn't one. It varies state law to state law and issue to issue, and you may know too. But the constitutional principle is that parents direct the upbringing and education of their kids, and that's the principle that's at stake here. But certainly on specific decisions like in the foster and adoption context, there are state laws that lawmakers have worked through and decided that this is something that a minor at a certain age should be involved in, and that's gone through that process. And there's some in the medical context as well.
So just for recapping the question, because we forgot to do that again, I think to sum up the question is, at what age should children be allowed with their parents or with their guardian to make important life decisions? I love this. I think this is an important question to discuss and debate because it's nuanced. Their child was your child in the foster system before you adopted? And so, yeah, this is definitely a nuanced situation. Go ahead if you want to contribute.
So it does vary quite a bit from state to state, and there's generally a recognition that as a child gets older, they're better able to, and they should have more say in what happens in these major life decisions. Generally speaking, until they're 18, they're still presumed to be in a situation where it's a family that's fit. There's an appropriate presumption that they're still under the care of their parents. And that's because we know that children legally cannot consent. They're not developmentally able to understand the risks of what they're consenting to. And so you want the person who is the final authority on that to be the person who most has that child's interest at heart. Generally speaking, that's the parent. In situations like, in a situation where a child is actually removed for good cause, and sadly there are those situations, and every state has laws that govern that, then the judge there's often a legal representative, a guardian ad litem, but generally speaking, it's desirable, obviously, for the child to have some say in where they go. But it is nuanced, and it goes by age somewhat. But the principle is that you want the person who most has the interest of the child at heart to be in charge of helping make those final decisions.
Thank you. Does that help answer your question somewhat? It seems like it's nuanced. It's between states, and it's...
Not really, but I expected that. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Just to help everybody with the timing, because I know I'm one of these that gets antsy in my seat. We were going to end at 9, but we didn't start till 7:10, so we'll probably go till 9:10. And so I don't know if we'll get through everyone in the line, unfortunately, but we're going to try really hard. Next question.
I was on the committee for it, yes.
Yeah. Terrible bill.
Yeah.
So, speaking of focusing on gun violence, this would make it a misdemeanor if a mass shooter does not seriously, if they don't injure anyone or if they don't seriously injure them, they could get probation.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of bills that they're trying to pass.
Correct.
So there's that.
So can you restate the question, please?
Yeah. So you were talking about, it is House Bill 1206, attempted murder with extreme indifference. And so we kind of nicknamed it the bad shot bill, because the idea is if you're trying to murder somebody and you're just a bad shot and you miss them, the state of Colorado is taking that from a Class 2 felony down to a class 5, which is probation eligible. So basically you go from 8 years in prison to probation because you're a bad shot. So good news and update on that, and I don't know how you feel about that bill, but that bill, we put a lot of pressure. That was another one of those bills like 1312. It didn't get quite the attention, but we put a lot of pressure on the bill sponsors. And so we heard that bill like 2 months ago. They finally brought it back to committee last night, and the sponsors of the bill killed the bill itself and postponed it indefinitely. So it's gone. So yeah.
Is that a bill we can all agree on, I would think? Go ahead.
And thank you for that, because we do hear senseless legislation. I just want to say for the record, 70 babies are aborted and killed in the state every single day. So that's actually the biggest killer of our children in the state of Colorado.
Okay, next question. Oh.
My biggest thing is that as a parent, I don't want my child to be put in a box, regardless of what that looks like. If they decide to be trans later on in life, that's totally fine. I don't care. I just don't want any medical intervention until they're above 21, to be honest, with everything that has been said.
Right.
Yeah, and I'll just comment on that to say that the science is catching up with that idea, and you're seeing a lot of doctors and medical experts come into some of the cases and the reports that are coming out saying that watchful waiting is the appropriate response to let a child work through what they're working through and decide who they are, but don't push them, and that it's dangerous to hide the information from parents because it forces the child to live a double life and prevents them from having that person to walk alongside them in this.
Thank you. Next question.
So much to respond to. I would pick just one thing. So I guess as far as discrimination on a very targeted group, transgender individuals, you seem to be throwing around the term First Amendment right a lot, but discrimination is more nuanced. There's a large situational awareness to take into account. If I'm at the office and someone says, hey, can you go get me a cup of coffee? That'd be really helpful. That's not discrimination, obviously. But if somebody is every day coming in and going, Karen, go get me a coffee, that might be sexual discrimination. So it's not just, no, it's not discrimination. No, not sexual discrimination. No, it's not. I could be incorrect, but it could be a workplace environment that is unkind. Sorry, I can't think of the right word.
Toxic.
Yeah, I think you're just getting at where the First Amendment interacts with
Kate,
anti-discrimination.
can you restate the question for the people?
Yeah, I think she's getting at, and correct me if I'm wrong, the way the First Amendment interacts with non-discrimination laws. And the Supreme Court has drawn a line between conduct and speech. So conduct that discriminates against somebody is subject to public accommodation laws. But speech, where the law would be aiming to compel somebody to speak or prevent them from being able to speak, triggers our constitutional protections, which are paramount and protect everybody so that everybody can speak freely.
Okay, so let me just make sure I'm understanding this correctly. If someone feels uncomfortable, they are transgender, and they want to be called she, you think that calling them she is, misgendering, calling them a he when they prefer she is not discrimination?
What the cases have said, and what the First Amendment upholds, is you cannot force somebody to say she if it violates their free speech, their desire for their own free speech, and their religious freedom is a separate reason for not compelling it. So there are cases out there that have weighed in on this issue to say you cannot force somebody to call you something or to require them to use a pronoun if it violates their free speech rights.
I appreciate the conversation about free speech. It is surprisingly nuanced, even though it's so important. I just think it's really important to figure out how to protect transgenders who are such a discriminated against group and have a large suicide rate because of the pressure and stress.
Yeah.
Just for those at home, she just thanked for the conversation about the First Amendment and said it was nuanced. Yeah, go ahead.
And I just want to, get a clarification on here for maybe some of the people who have certain ideas about where we stand on this issue. And I'm speaking for myself on this. So we have a transgender representative in the House. And I call this transgendered female, so biological male, and then is female now. And out of respect, I say, Madam Chair, and I say, Mrs. and things like that, because I'm friendly, and that's what this representative would like to be called. It's when we get into legal policy and compelled speech and the law is where I draw the line at, right? I'm generally a nice person, so I'm going to say, right, I speak for myself here. So I'm a kind person. I'll say Madam Chair and Mrs. and things. It's when you start compelling it by law is where I draw the line.
Thank you. Next question. Next question. Oh, did you want to?
No, I don't know why you handed it to me.
Okay. Next question.
My name's Michael Vance. I'm legislative director of the LPCL. I appreciate you guys. We have some real strong fighters. These two, we also have Rep. Scott Bottoms over here in the back. Fighters for your liberty like hard. It's very, very hard to fight a group of legislators down at the Capitol, especially in the House. So first off, thank you guys. We really appreciate it. We've interviewed me and another guy named Brandon Warwick. Yes. He runs a channel called Free State Colorado. We've interviewed all of them on his channel on our Sunday night live streams.
Do you have a question, sir?
He's amazing. He's amazing.
Thank you for being amazing, but we only have 5 more minutes, and so if you got a question, I'd love to hear it.
So my question is, seeing everything that you guys have gone through at the Capitol, and we have 1 week left, what do we need to look out for in this final week of the session, and what can we tell these people that are here, the people that got activated, saw the craziness of last night in the legislative battle of 1312 committee hearing?
Right.
What are some tips that we can give them to help these individuals go out in the community and really spread the message like wildfire?
I'll start really quick. Michael Vance, Brandon Warwick, Free State Colorado, follow them. They're amazing, fighting for liberty. The worst of the worst is coming. You think it's bad now, the worst of the worst is coming. Anti-immigration policy. They're going to rob your Tabor from you, Taxpayer Bill of Rights. The worst of the worst, buckle up. It's about to get very, very bumpy. Watch the Colorado channel. Follow us on all of our social medias. We post a couple times a day. If you're not involved, you have no right to complain. Get involved. It's time to get involved. They've taken your gun rights away, pretty much. They've taken your First Amendment rights. They just did it last night to about 500 of you. If you're not involved, stop complaining, okay? Buckle up, get down there, testify, and get ready.
Excellent. I don't think he can top that. You can't top that. Next question.
Thank you very much. My question is actually for the audience here this evening. Should your children's teachers tell you if they don't pick the right lunch at recess? What if they're not eating their vegetables? What if they look sad? There has to be a line we draw at some point. And the reason that so many people have drawn it here is because we have multiple sources published in the Journal of Adolescent Health in Nature. A fair amount of data in an emerging area, I'll admit, that says that suicide rates go from 13.11% to 5.89% if they have trusted adults in their lives. They can be open about their gender. If they have their pronouns respected. I am aware that compelled speech is a thorny legal issue, but respecting people really isn't. And as far as I can tell, most of the trans legislation happening is an attempt to preempt people from actively disrespecting them at every public opportunity. So when I came out in 2016,
Thank you, sir. I think I know you asked the audience, but I think Representative Bradley and our attorney Kate looked like and Laura each have some responses to your comments. Can someone please? I'll just kind of recap. It's going to be hard to recap that whole thing, but basically, a couple statements that if someone in your life is gay or LGBTQ community and hasn't come out to you, there's a reason. You said that. And you agree that the First Amendment issue is nuanced and a little gray, but you think a lot of these laws that are being proposed are to protect transgender and some of the LGBTQ community from being attacked. Did I summarize that? Okay, great, thank you.
I will always hide my children from false narratives, woke ideology, lies, mutilation, and lifelong sterility, 100%.
I feel like I have to double down on the First Amendment again because we keep talking about it. And in many ways, this was a speech for First Amendment. We draw the line on the First Amendment as a society when you're forcing another member of society to say something that violates their conscience. And that applies to everyone across the board. And the Supreme Court has said that we accept odious speech and we protect it because we want the freedom to speak our own minds, to debate, to be able to not be compelled by the other side of any debate to violate our own conscience. And we can all think of things we would not want to have to say, things that we wouldn't want to have to do in our business, say in our business, things we wouldn't have to say in our personal lives. And that's why the First Amendment is so important, to allow us to talk about these issues when we respect that we're not going to compel each other to have a certain viewpoint or to speak a certain viewpoint. And so it's all about that mutual respect. On the issue of, I think you were starting to say, like, when does a school need to tell you and what do they need to tell you? The line that we see drawn is that when the school takes the action to actually do something with the information, when they're actually treating a child differently, when they're taking action on that, that then they need to let the parent know that they're taking that action because that action is something that triggers the parent's right to be able to be the one to make those decisions with their kids, to help their kids with those things, to walk through those things with their kids. So it's that extra step of action that triggers the requirement to support the parental rights there.
Yeah, I wanted to pick up on a couple things that you said. One was this concept that suicide goes down when kids are affirmed. And we actually know that that's not the case. Even the ACLU attorney at Scarametti acknowledged that the suicide rate did not go down when kids were affirmed. And if you look at the other piece of it, particularly, you're talking about social affirmation. We know from the CAS review, we know from other reviews that social affirmation, so using new pronouns, treating a child as if they're the other sex, that is not a neutral intervention. And that was ruled even in the case of Grimm versus Gloucester in Virginia, which is where I live, where it was called the first step in an intervention, a medical intervention. So what you're having when you keep this information from parents at school, what you're doing is essentially taking the first step in a medical protocol without the parents' involvement. That's actually what you're doing, because we know that 8 or 9 out of 10 of kids who are supported, who are just supported through puberty, eventually embrace their own sex. Kids that are socially affirmed, the vast majority, all but 1 out of 1,000 in one of the studies that was done, actually went on to medicalize. So that is a staggering number. So what you're doing, if you pull that one piece out and you affirm behind a parent's back, 8 out of 10 times you're making a mistake out of what the kids would normally do. And there are just other things that kids would like to not tell parents if they get a bad grade, if they're bullied. There are a lot of things that are disagreeable to tell a parent that a parent still needs to know. And that's just the way it's made, because none of us get to grow up without disagreeing with our parents. As I said yesterday, if the standard for removal by CPS or for lying to parents is disagreement, all of us would be living in state care. All of us would lose our kids.
Okay, and that is, I'm sorry to the rest of the speakers, we are flat out of time. 30 seconds down the line, maybe if people want to be able to reach you on social or what can people do, finding statement, 30 seconds, and then we will wrap this up. Go.
I think my 30 seconds, I'd love to say go to look at the documentary that dailycaller.com is putting out tomorrow on when the state takes your kids. And we actually have model legislation at Heritage that helps define abuse as excluding raising a child according to their biology. So look at that, maybe use it as a ballot initiative, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. And if you want to find out more about what Alliance Defending Freedom is doing on any of these cases, or the legislative team that we have that's working on bills like this one, you can find out more at adflegal.org.
Hi, Brandy Bradley. You can find me on all socials. Google me. There's a bunch of great stuff out there. And you can always get a hold of me. I've got a great newsletter, and I'm always available. I'd love to. Hey, I'll sit down with anyone, have a cup of coffee. Just treat me with respect, and you'll get respect back. Thanks.
Jarvis Caldwell. The best place to follow me is on X. Just go at Rep Caldwell on X, and I usually try to be pretty active on there. Also follow the Colorado House Republicans, because on that account they cover everything all 22 of us are doing, and so you can keep up with all of us. Sure.
Okay, and we'll close that out.
And Scott Bottoms back there is running for governor. Google search him.
We are a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization. We don't endorse any candidates. Thank you all. Visit moms4liberty.org on all social, and just appreciate the decorum tonight. Thank you.
Chapter.